everyone, welcome to Logan Smosh Pig. Glad to have you here. Do me a favor and please subscribe if you haven't already. Yes, indeed, time for another rock and read. Today, you will get to hear Chapter 49 and Chapter 50 of Iron Man by the riffmaster from Black Sabbath, Tony Iommi. Here we go. Bill was drinking in total excess, even on the gigs, which he never used to do. You didn't notice it too much while he was playing. He was just getting more aggressive and angry, and physically, he was getting in a bad way as well. He was constantly having little problems, panic attacks and stuff. It got to all of us, but we didn't have to say anything to him, because one day, he just disappeared. It was August 21st, 1980. We were due to do a gig in Denver, but he got absolutely legless, got in his bus with his brother Jim driving, and just cleared off. We didn't even know he'd gone until somebody told us, "Bill has left." Pardon? Bill has left. No! He never said goodbye, nothing. He was just gone. I had talked to Bill a lot, but it shocked me when he left. That really caught me by surprise, and we were in street. We had to cancel the gig. Ronnie was concerned because he really liked Bill. We gotta get him back. When we finally reached Bill, we heard that he didn't want to do it anymore. When we recorded the album, he liked it, but the touring side really got to him. We had to go out and prove ourselves again. He couldn't handle that, and he didn't want to know any more. Finished. So, we had to find somebody to replace him. For me, that was awful, because I hadn't worked with another drummer since well before Black Sabbath had even started. I relied on Bill a lot. We had played together for 100 years. We had a huge open-air festival in Hawaii coming up, which we were headlining, so we were panicking. What are we gonna do? We'd got some tapes from different drummers, and one of them was Vinny Appice's. Ronnie had heard about Vinny, so he said, "Let's get in touch with him." We literally had a day and a half to try Vinny out and agree whether he was going to be the one or not. If he was good, he was going to play in Hawaii with us. If not, we had to cancel the gig. And he was good. He came out with this tiny little kit, and he was playing away. But I was used to Bill with his huge kit. I thought, oh, he's only using that right now for the rehearsal. We went to Hawaii, and I walked on stage where we had this big drum riser for Bill to use, and on it was this same tiny little kit. It was like a beginner set. I thought, bloody hell, you are never going to be able to hear him. I really went to bits backstage, pacing up and down, and Ronnie said, "It'll be all right." I said, "No, I've never played with another drummer for all these years." I was absolutely terrified. We went on stage, and it just looked funny, with a big wall of amps, a big drum riser, and then this puny little kit. But blimey, he played them great. Vinny wasn't 100% sure of all the songs, so he had written out all these notes. It started raining, and all the writing got smudged, so he couldn't read it anymore. He didn't know where we were, but he did really good. And yes, we heard him as well. That gig was real panic stations to me. Some idiot fired a real mortar bomb. We heard this shh, boom. It exploded backstage. Luckily, it was a real big area. None of us got hurt, and I don't think anybody else did either, but it created a big bloody hole. I still can't believe somebody would do that. And where did they get one of them from? Pretty serious stuff. It might have been Ozzy, actually. Missed. There's quite a difference between the way Vinny and Bill played drums. Vinny came in with all these fast rolls, which Bill didn't play at all. Bill was from the John Bonham and Cozy Powell camp. He was good, but he had his own style. He created his unique thing, very unorthodox. Bill wouldn't play a straightforward beat. He always put some little bits in, like a percussionist. He would hear these symphonies in his head and try to play like he had 8 hands. We'd say, "Bill, you know, you've only got 2 arms." But that was Bill. He'd listen to the songs and see all these dramatic stuff in them, timpanis and all that, so he'd think more percussion-wise. Vinny is just an out-and-out drummer. He'll play the beat forever. He'll also do these little odd rolls, but Vinny is a really precise drummer, whereas with Bill, it was touch and go. Bill would do things, and sometimes they would come off, and sometimes they wouldn't. Vinny's drumming brought something else to the music. It made it tighter. It made it more precise, probably even more mainstream. Where Bill did something like boom-ch, pa-pa-pa, Vinny would simply go boom-ch, boom-ch, boom-ch. Less playful, but more precise, and probably with less character, because Bill had developed his own style, and it was Bill. You either like it, or you don't, and I like it. In playing with Vinny, I had to retrain my mind as well. I thought, he's really good, but he cannot be too precise on the old songs. He's got to be a bit laid back. Black Sabbath was never exact on the timing. With Bill, we would start off in one tempo and end up in another. It was a natural feel, and Bill had that feel. I had to go through everything with Vinny, as I later have with every drummer, trying to coax him into playing the old songs as they were. But first things first, I said to him, "You've got to get a bigger kit if you're going to be with this band." He never forgot that. He has this huge kit now, with drums all over the place. I said to him, "Hell, Vinny, have you got enough drums there?" And he said, "Well, you started it." There was no answer to that. Well, that concludes chapter 49, so let's proceed to chapter 50. We started our Heaven and Hell tour in Germany in April 1980. We would ping-pong between Germany and the UK for a while, before making our way to the States in July. Ronnie flashed his devil sign all over the place, one with the outstretched first and fourth fingers, while holding the second and third down with his thumb. He gets credited for inventing it, but I've got a picture of Geezer from many years before doing just that. But Ronnie brought it more to light, and in doing so, made it his own. Our production featured a cross. We had this thing built that worked electronically. It flashed lights all around it, and they changed in different sequences. And when we played Heaven and Hell, the cross was supposed to burst into flames. It hardly ever worked. One classic moment came when we were playing Madison Square Garden. Ronnie did this big build-up, saying to the audience, "I want you all to concentrate on the cross." He was going on and on about it. Keep concentrating. He got to the crescendo, and it was 1, 2, 3, and the cross went psst, like a bloody little sparkler. And Ronnie went, "Well, I guess you're not concentrating enough." It looked good when it burst into flames, but that night was one of those Spinal Tap moments, and that happened more often than not. By this time, we had Sandy Pearlman managing us. He had been after us from the time we parted ways with Don Arden. We had nowhere else to go. Sandy looked like a hiker. He had a cap on his head and a bag on his back. I've never seen him dressed up. He was all right at first, but he soon turned out to be a bloody joke. In the States, he put us on tour together with Blue Oyster Cult. Because he had managed them for a long time, he favored them over us. That's why we did the Black and Blue tour, where they would close one night and we would close the other. We hadn't been on a co-headliner before, because we'd always had bands supporting us. It seemed strange with them headlining, also because they weren't that big. I suppose Sandy wanted to make them big by putting them in that position. It was a disaster, because they used this big, bloody fiberglass Godzilla thing on stage, and it took them forever to break it down. On the nights we followed them, we were backstage an hour and a half before we could go on. The fans would get bored waiting and blame us for it, and then we'd go into overtime with the unions. It was a bit unfair. Sandy didn't manage us for very long. We fired him. He ended up getting paid off, so he walked away with a lump of cash. We just carried on with Mark Forster again. We were doing big shows, and it was difficult for Ronnie to go out and stand in front of people who had seen Ozzy in that spot for 10 years. Some of the fans hated it, and they'd shout, "Ozzy! Ozzy!" But eventually, Ronnie won them over. While we were touring Heaven and Hell, NIMS released Live at Last, an album of stuff we had recorded back in 1975. It was a Patrick Meehan thing. We were very upset about it, but it was at number 5 in the charts by the time we got an injunction to stop it. The sound was awful on it, and it interfered with what we were doing with Ronnie. The injunction collapsed on it, and things were sorted out later. In 2002, it was released again, this time under the name Past Lives. On September 25th, 1980, while we were touring America, we lost John Bonham. That hit me really hard, but I don't think anybody who knew John could see him going any other way. He loved to do everything to excess. Him and Keith Moon were much the same, a bit loony, good friends as well, and they did burn the candle at both ends as much as they could. They got a bit mad. You never knew what they'd do next. I always thought, they can't keep on doing it all the time. They've got to hit a wall somewhere. There is a downside to it. But when I heard, it made me think about the vulnerability of everyone. Who's next? That could happen to us. It knocked everybody for a loop. It was really depressing. John had such a lot going for him. About 2 weeks later, in the Mecca Arena in Milwaukee, somebody in the audience threw this big metal cross at Geezer, and it bounced off his guitar and hit him in the face. They probably thought, "Oh, he'll like this, a present. I'll throw it on stage for him." People who do stuff like that are idiots. If it had hit him in the head, it could have blinded or even injured him. We walked off stage, and because most of the audience had no idea about what had happened, a riot broke out. They were fighting, breaking chairs up, throwing pieces about. It was mayhem. But what can you do? We could hardly walk back on going, "Hello, we're back again. Everybody quiet down." In November, we started our first Japanese tour with dates in Tokyo, Kyoto, and Osaka. I got food poisoning big time. It must have been the sushi. I was on stage, ran around in circles, and just passed out. Bang! They got me to hospital, and they injected this stuff into me. It was the biggest syringe I've ever seen. God knows what it was, but it really worked. I should have got a load of that, really. Can I have some to go? While I got floored by sushi, Geezer managed to do it to himself. He freaked out one night, and he broke the end of his finger. It must have been the sake. Him and Ronnie used to go to the bar, have too much to drink, and get into a squabble among themselves. Of course, the next day, they would both regret it. Geezer would often get carried away, so breaking his finger probably happened that way. I wasn't there when it happened. I just heard later that the next couple of gigs were canceled because of that. Geezer had a splint on it for a while. For once, I wasn't the only one dealing with damaged fingers. Well, that's the end of chapter 50. Let me know what you thought of both chapters in the comments below. That does it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. I really appreciate the support. I'll see you next time. Till then, rock on.